dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat.
You're listening to Truth Talk.
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere.
With Paul Webster and Chance George.
First year of global governance with the establishment of the G20 in the middle of the financial crisis.
President Bush signed a formal agreement that will end the United States as we know it.
Nope, no weapons over there.
People who have been yelling, oh, the UN's going to take over global
conspiracy theorists.
They've been crazy, but now they're right.
Yeah. Maybe under here.
But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that.
Hello and welcome back. We are live from the Media Broadcasting Center. I am one half of Truth Talk. I'm Chance George. I won't be joined by my co-host tonight, Paul Webster, as we are doing a little bit of an afternoon show, and we were able to get a very special guest on, and he only had a limited time slot, so we're connecting right now and getting the show underway. We are joined by Richard Gage, and I'll get into a lot of the things he's done and what he's working on right now. He's doing a Canadian tour, and I'm very excited because I am Canadian, so it's amazing to see this happening in my country. But just a couple of quick programming notes before we dive in right into this. Anyone who wants to see all the archives, go to webookyourshow.com. There's not only all the archives for Truth Talk, but the Bev Collins Show, Canada the Nation, Standing in Honor, all the other shows that air on the network. My blog is also there that has all of these types of shows up and dated, and lots of little info and stuff that I've made. We are going to be streaming live on Livestream. That's probably what you're watching right now. And of course, we do a simulcasting project over on Network Radio, which is Blog Talk Radio. And at any point in time, we are open to take callers today at our call-in line, which is 866-806-6264, or you could email me at mbc@webookyourshow.com. That's basically all that I have to get out of the way. I would like to welcome our guest, Richard Gage. Welcome to Truth Talk. How are you doing today, my friend?
Very good, Chance. It's cold up here in Canada, and it's snowing.
Oh, yes. Welcome to springtime in Canada. Surprise. We're all Eskimos.
Yeah, it's supposed to be sun shining like it was last year, but they have some extended storms.
Now, I basically called this Truth Talk episode 68, an in-depth interview with Richard Gage. A lot of the people who listen to this show and a lot of the people on the network were really familiar with the basic fallacies of the 9/11 official story. A lot of people know that, yes, World Trade Center came down in a free fall speed. We have the Twin Towers, definitely some chicanery going on there. It's not like it's the first time anyone's hearing, so if there's some advanced stuff that you'd like to talk about, we didn't have to stick to like an introduction to people here today, so that'd be one thing I'd like to mention right away. And could you give us maybe a brief introduction, like a 2-minute intro or something about how the architects and engineers came together and how you put together this group and how many people you are up to now?
Yes, 8 years ago, I was listening to the radio here in the San Francisco Bay Area where our office is now. I was shocked to learn that there was a third skyscraper that collapsed on 9/11. I knew nothing about it, even though it was the third worst structural failure in modern history. So that got me on the bandwagon, and then the evidence at the World Trade Center. We didn't see it in mainstream media. We didn't hear about it on any of the architectural forums and so forth. Most architects know nothing about it. We have been speaking about it now for 8 years because I formed Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. We did not have we had scholars for 9/11 Truth. We had all these other sectors of society looking into 9/11, but the architects and engineers were missing. So now we do have 2,100. They are demanding a real investigation of what happened at the World Trade Center on 9/11, and it is amazing what's happening right now. We're on this 17-city tour. We are waking up many Canadians, as we have many Americans and others around the world, to the evidence that is just shocking a lot of people. This information is very difficult to deal with. It was for me 8 years ago. I was a Reagan Republican. I was rooting for the, if you will, for the war in Iraq at the time, and boy, was this a turnaround for me.
It's unbelievable the paradigm shift that not only you personally have gone through, but what the public is starting to awaken to. Like you said, you're going across Canada now, and you're getting a tremendous response. I've talked to Bev Collins off air, and she tells me that not only are you being well received and people are digging on the information, but you're actually having political candidates coming up and offering to join on a 9/11 platform. Could you speak on that for a brief moment?
Oh, indeed. People are really upset that they didn't know about this evidence. When they find out about it, they realize that 9/11 was not what we were told it was, and they want to do something about it. They're very, very, very upset. We have a right to know what started the invasion of two countries, what started the loss of our civil liberties in America with the Patriot Act, the National Defense Authorization Act, the Military Commissions Act. We want to know why we started a global war on terror and lost $4.5 trillion in our economy toward that end, and because of it. If there's any question about 9/11, we have to go back and get a real investigation that uncovers the truth about it. So that's why Canadians are signing up to run for Parliament, so that we can get truth in the governmental bodies, and we can have a microphone, a podium where the truth about 9/11 can be told.
That's it's unbelievable that we've come so far so quickly compared to something like the JFK, where we're looking at 50 years later. People know what happened, but it's still we haven't got over changing history books, and we'd like to see something like that be accomplished with 9/11 a lot sooner than the 50-year mark. Now, how many dates do you have left on the Canadian tour as you go across Canada? How much is left of the tour?
Well, we're in Fredericton tonight at 7 p.m., and then Moncton or St. John after that, and then Halifax, and then Newfoundland.
Okay, so you're at the tail end, and you're on the East Coast. All right, there is another one of our show hosts that's on the East Coast in New Brunswick, and I hope that they might be able to get over there and get some coverage of the event. Now, I just want to move along quickly, as we do only have you're with us for about 40 minutes. I saw you on some mainstream media coverage in Canada. I'm not 100% of what the network was, but as soon as they had your name on screen and they had the initial picture of you, of course they have the little banner that goes along the bottom, conspiracy theorist, and then this gentleman has an alternative theory, and they pose it so dramatically one-sided and biased, as if the official story was handed to us from God itself, and you're a heretic to have questioned it. Tell me just what it's like seeing that side of it on TV, and how you actually were approached. Did they stick around to your event? Did they take any information from you, or was just another whitewash?
No, this is Michael Corrin. He has a reputation here in Canada of being a bit of an oddity himself. That's as far as I'll go with that. But on Sun Media, it's a far-right TV program. Anyway, no, he didn't stay and listen to the actual evidence. They're very quick to label us as conspiracy theorists or loonies or whatever. Until they're informed, what's essential is that people get informed with the evidence, and that they then make their conclusions. It's real easy to just dismiss evidence for things that we don't understand, particularly something as indigestible as the truth about 9/11. I mean, we're talking about the destruction of 3 skyscrapers in which 3,000 people were killed in the Twin Towers, and the third worst structural failure in modern history with respect to Building 7, this 47-story skyscraper that on the afternoon of 9/11 is destroyed in 7 seconds. And it is obviously with explosives in a controlled demolition, looks just like a controlled demolition, and yet the official story, which didn't even come out in its final report until 8 years later, says normal office fires have brought this building down and to the ground at free fall acceleration. That's as fast as a bowling ball falling off the side of the building. Now, the only way that can happen, a building coming down symmetrically at free fall, is if all of those columns, 80 in this case, are removed all at once. We're talking 40,000 tons of structural steel framing removed all at once. And when I say removed, I mean the columns are severed.
Zero resistance.
Huh?
I said zero resistance.
Yeah, zero resistance. That is what has to be explained by people who call us conspiracy theorists. So they don't do that. So they don't come to the presentation. So they don't look at the evidence. So they don't report on it. So they must have some sort of an agenda which is inconsistent with truth. They have no interest in seeking the truth, reporting on the evidence, because of where it leads, apparently. Now, a controlled demolition is obviously indicative of somebody getting inside this building and planting those explosives, thousands of them in the columns and beams adjacent to the building, for which we have evidence, by the way, lots of evidence. For instance, in the base of Building 7 at the rubble pile, which falls in a 4 to 6 story pile, we want to know why there's pools of molten iron flowing like lava, the first responders say. The ends of the steel beams are partially evaporated, according to the author of the FEMA report, which came out originally in 2002, and whose Appendix C documents very carefully hot temperature corrosion and the erosion of the steel with liquid molten iron. This is very carefully identified in a forensic study by metallurgists. And we want to know why they also document sulfur. Well, sulfur is used in thermite, which is used by the military to cut through steel like a hot knife through butter. The result is molten iron, which is what the first responders see. In fact, over at the Twin Towers, there's molten iron pouring out of the South Tower at the point of jet plane impacts 10 minutes before the South Tower falls. There's molten iron again over there, seen and documented by witnesses, and in fact, all the World Trade Center dust, which is laid like a blanket, it's mostly concrete powder, or 30% of it is concrete powder. The floors were pulverized in midair, 90,000 tons of concrete. And we want to know, the 2,100 architects and engineers that I represent, why there's molten iron droplets found which is up to 6% of the dust out there is previously molten iron droplets. This is completely unexplained in the official story, even though it is very carefully documented by the USGS, by R.J. Lee, an environmental consulting group. So we have the evidence of thermite incendiaries which are completely unexplained by officials, yet carefully documented. But another team of scientists, led by Niels Harrit in Copenhagen, finds curious red-gray chips. They're red on one side, gray on the other, about a couple of millimeters long. Most of them, they're found in all 4 independently collected dust samples. And these come up to a magnet, so they have iron in them. They also have, when they zoom in with a 50,000 power microscope, nanoparticles of iron oxide and aluminum powder, the key ingredients of thermite, but they're 1,000 times smaller than the diameter of a human hair. So these particles are built from the atomic scale up, an extremely sophisticated process. They're laid in an organic bed of oxygen, silica, carbon, which means they can have very explosive force, power. So we have an incendiary that's been engineered to become an explosive, and it's found in all the World Trade Center dust, and that is not documented by officials, but it could easily have been because they brought in defense contractors to lead the NIST investigation, who were themselves experts in the development of nanothermite. So they were clearly capable of finding it.
It's unbelievable how much just pours on top of the story. Now, WT7, there was a campaign that went around called Building What, and we saw people like Bob McIlvaine, who Bev Collins had on the show last night, and different people talking about, you know, my son, my daughter, my family member, and then we see the new Rethink 9/11 videos, and they're all talking about Building 7. Building 7 seems to be the smoking gun because Tower 1 and 2, people can see a physical plane, or whatever people want to say was a plane, crashing through a building, and then they, you know, logically in their head, you know, rationalize, maybe not logically, but they have something to rationalize why the building fell. Now, like you said, nobody heard about WT7 going down, so it kind of, you know, it's, you know, what are you talking about, another building fell? Well, I just had one personal theory, and it could be nuts, but I believe that plane that hit Shanksville was supposed to hit WT7, and at one point, these people, whoever did this on that day, just basically said, you know, like, what are we going to do about that last building there that we didn't hit with a plane? Well, just pull it anyway. The people are so dumb, they won't even know. I think that's what happened. They just went through with the plan, even though there was something happened in Shanksville, whether it's a shoot down or a crash or whatever it is. Does that sound plausible? And then we'll get into a little bit more about WT7 itself.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in the 9/11 truth movement, researchers, believe that's the case. Some of them believe it was heading toward the Congress. We don't really know. We have to speculate. But clearly, Building 7, either way, was a part of the 9/11 conspiracy. Even the official story is a conspiracy. Building 7, there was plenty of foreknowledge. The BBC actually announced the collapse of this Building 7 20 minutes before it even happened. And they even had the reason why it collapsed, due to structural weakening because of fire. Now, that's pretty interesting. CNN also, by the way, announced its collapse indirectly at 11:07 that morning, saying that a 50-story building went down 15 minutes ago. But there was no other 50-story building that went down after the Twin Towers, which they had already announced. So there was no other building, in fact. There was some buildings that were partially crushed, but they weren't talking about those. Those are only not even anywhere near 50 stories.
It's unbelievable. Now, I know that in Canada it took a long time for this to start to build up momentum. Now it seems like it's something that you can openly talk about to people. They're open to the fact that this WT7 seems to be the smoking gun. So could you give people a quick overview of how big this building really was? Like 47 stories. I'm on construction sites for my day job, and I'm in structures this big, and I'm looking around being like, there's no way this is falling down at free fall speed and just turning into a pile of rubble, at least not without falling over to one side or something. Can we get an overview of the facts of how this massive structure came down?
Well, it is. Each floor is the size of a football field. It is a massive building, and it is the highest building in most of our states. As a matter of fact, 33 states at least. So we have small office fires in these buildings, and they're scattered, and these are what is said to have brought this building down. Office fire burns through an area of an office building every 20 minutes or so, and then looking for fresh new fuel sources. So if a building is going to come down, and again, no high-rise building before 9/11 has ever come down due to fire. And even the Twin Towers are essentially office fires because the jet fuel burned up outside the building, and then what remained inside burned up in 10 minutes, according to NIST. Even the National Institute of Standards and Technology, who was tasked with explaining these. So there's no jet fuel at Building 7, though, not hit by an airplane. Few small scattered fires. And the fires that they said caused this building to collapse on the 12th floor were out over an hour before it collapsed. So they could not have caused the thermal expansion of the beams in that building that was said to have initiated that collapse. There's a number of other problems with NIST's explanation of that initiation of collapse as well, which we'll be going into tonight in Fredericton. It's so obvious to everyone. I mean, there was no one believed the official story. I don't think about Building 7's collapse in any of the presentations we've done so far. I think 11 presentations on this tour, and 300 around the country and around the world. In 82 American cities, hardly anyone, maybe one or two sometimes, believed the official story of that this building came down by office fire. And afterward, just nobody. And most people are unfamiliar with Building 7. Most of the time. And at the beginning. So it's a nice test case. It doesn't have the emotional impact of the people who were killed in the building and the shock that we all experienced on that day. It's new material to people, so they're relatively open. So when we have them convinced that it is a controlled demolition and that we've been lied to by NIST in a fraudulent report for which they're criminally liable, and we intend to hold them so, we then present the evidence of the Twin Towers, which have 110,000 tons of, 110 stories, 100,000 tons of intact, cold, hard structural steel, which were said gave way in about a dozen seconds from the top to the bottom, as if it weren't even there. It's amazing how much steel is in the facade of these buildings when you look at it without the aluminum cladding covering it up before that's been installed. It is more steel than glass in these buildings. So again, it's quite impossible that any kind of a natural office fire could take these buildings down to the ground in 12 seconds. In fact, what we're told is that the block, if you will, of 15 stories in the case of the North Tower, above the point of jet plane impacts, drove the rest of the building down to the ground due to its massive weight, and that's why it fell at freefall. Well, or near freefall. We have We don't see that in the videos. What we see is that upper 15 stories destroying itself in a classic implosion, very similar actually to Building 7. In the first 4 seconds, it's gone, or its structure is completely shattered. There's no intact body capable of destroying anything below it.
It also, correct me if I'm wrong, it also tilted on such an angle that any real collapse of it would have pushed it off to the side of the building and probably, onto another building, not penetrating through the most resistance you could possibly have, these giant megastructures.
Well, the South Tower, Building 2, the upper 30 stories in that case did tilt, and it was about 22 degrees. And theoretically, continuing its angular momentum, we'd expect it to fall on the ground in some mangled heap, as you're suggesting. But what happens after that is a complete band of symmetrical explosions traveling down the building, easily seen in the videos and on our website, by the way, which is ae911truth.org. They are traveling almost as fast as the free-falling debris, and so this is symmetrical. So we have asymmetrical damage due to the fires, and asymmetrical damage due to the airplanes, asymmetrical loading from this off-center block of 30 stories, and yet we have complete symmetrical destruction all the way down the building. And there are 118 firefighters that are on record as seeing flashes of light and or hearing explosions synchronized, like a deliberate kind of thing, one firefighter says. Another one says, like a bell, all these explosions. Now what happens with these explosions is we have this laterally, freely flying structural steel wall sections at 60 miles an hour laterally out of the building, landing up to in a 1,400-foot diameter. Almost all of it outside the perimeter of the structure. No stack of floors is found at the bottom of either of these twin towers. We'd expect in a pancaking collapse a stack of pancakes of some shape, but all we see down there is a 2-story, 3-story pile of core columns, perimeter columns, etc. This is an incredibly explosive event, completely shattering the structure of this building.
Did they find the needle on the top of the North Tower, I believe?
Yeah, they did.
Okay. Now,
let's call it in a massive concrete antenna.
Now, there was also reports, and they were only quick reports because apparently the witness now has already been murdered, killed. Barry Jennings said that he stepped over dead bodies in the lobby of WT7, and that the lobby was blown out. He said the whole thing was just blown out like a massive bomb went off. He
was experiencing explosions inside the stairwell as well, as he and Michael Hess tried to get back into this building.
Now,
after it was evacuated.
Oh, sorry, I think you're cutting out just a little bit there. Now, in that actual building itself,
which was right after the plane, he did tell him not.
I think you're just cutting in and out there, Richard. I'm not sure if you're picking that up as well.
Okay, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah.
I can hear you now. Go ahead.
In that building, was there not CIA or Port Authority, some sort of headquarters that was like structurally reinforced to be like a command center in this type of emergency, and it too was obliterated by office fires? Is that not correct?
Well, the worst office fires were on the 12th floor, which was occupied by the Securities and Exchange Commission, which, by the way, lost thousands of files related to hundreds of cases that it was actively pursuing against Wall Street companies like Enron and WorldCom. So we certainly want an investigation of those fires, of the security company who had, under whose noses would have to have had we're talking tons and tons of very sophisticated explosives and incendiaries. And so, yes, the CIA, the IRS, the Department of Defense, Mayor Giuliani's Office of Emergency Management, which was designed to run the whole city in the event of a catastrophic situation, we don't think that Al-Qaeda had access to this highly secure building. This is why you hear people saying this is some sort of an inside operation. And of course, we don't know who's responsible. We don't know how high or how wide this circle of awareness or participation in this monstrous deed really goes. But we need to start with the evidence and a real investigation, which brings forth witnesses by taking testimony, takes that testimony under oath, offering immunity to bring forth witnesses is what I mean.
Now, there definitely seems to be lots and lots of different scenarios and theories. Like you mentioned, there is 9/11 pilots. There's firefighters for 9/11 Truth, scholars for 9/11 Truth, families for 9/11 Truth. There's so many different outlets out there who all see individual problems. They all have brought their professional opinions and their education behind them. Like you guys brought the evidence of this. Well, we build these things for a living, and that's not how it happens. So it's everyone piling all the evidence together is building this massive case against the official story, the official myth that is basically a laughable joke if it wasn't so tragic to what's happened since then. It just dawns on me all the time that everything of it is a lie. Now, obviously, some of the things that we're seeing on the internet cannot all be true, and some of the things out there are just complete disinformation, and some of that could be the powers that have perpetrated this type of event. Have you heard of any alternative theories that maybe intrigue you, that maybe necessarily you don't have evidence on, or isn't in your field of architects and engineers? Like, is there anything you've heard about the planes, or any kind of alternative theory that kind of sparks your interest as well?
Well, what I'm interested in bringing to the American people and the Canadian people right now is the solid scientific evidence for the explosive destruction of these buildings, the evidence for incendiaries, as we indicated, in all the dust in the base of the rubble piles, the condition of those structural steel beams, their behavior during the descent of these buildings, the manner of the descent of the building, the speed of the descent of the buildings. This is all a smoking gun for explosive controlled demolition. There are other theories out there which are, in my opinion, unsupported by the evidence. And I'm not intrigued by them, but I do get a lot of questions about them.
That would be certain things like directed energy weapons, or people that say there's mini nukes, different theories like this, correct?
Yeah, in the case of directed energy weapons, there's somebody who suggests that this technology exists, even though we don't know anything about it or much about it, and it certainly is not capable of this level of mass destruction in terms of what we would know. It apparently, for those who have researched it, they suggest that it wouldn't be explosive, that it wouldn't produce hot molten iron, which is what we have evidence for, and it's also contradicted by the evidence we do have, such as nanothermite, which its proponent, Judy Wood, in this case, denies explosions, denies nanothermite, denies hot molten iron. So anybody who's going to be denying the evidence, which we have cold, hard facts for, I have a great deal of suspicion about their integrity.
Now with Judy Woods, I I caught some of what her YouTube videos were saying, and it kind of sparks your interest. So I went out and bought her book, and I read the entire thing. She does actually mention about the nanothermite iron spheres. It's actually on page 331. There's she goes into detail about what it also could possibly be, but just to put on the record before anyone thinks that this is an attack on Richard, if Richard Gage tomorrow hung up his 9/11 belt and said, I am done with, I've done everything that I could, then people should be proud of what he's done. He's one of the people who's brought actual truth from the architects and engineers. People, when I tried to tell my parents or other people at the workforce, 9/11 inside job, they look at me like I'm crazy. They say, this is untrue. I say, well, have you heard of the architects and engineers? 2,100 of them who also are saying exactly what I'm talking about. So Richard Gage has brought this huge part of truth to the movement. So when I ask him questions and kind of debate back and forth on things like this, there's no disrespect to me, and it's just always putting out other ideas and open-mindedness. So just huge thank you to Richard Gage for what he's done at this point and everything that he's brought to the table. But there's just some of the things, like when I was reading her book and looked at some of the seismic data, and that it appears that it didn't quite make as big of a bang on the ground as what we should have seen. Have you seen research where it's comparing the Seattle Kingdom of about 20 to 30 stories versus the Twin Towers of 110 stories, and what their different seismic material was? It's kind of baffling.
I sure have. First of all, look at page 224, 226 in her book. That's where she denies this basic evidence for explosions, hot molten iron, and nanothermite. And then, so that's really important for people to be aware of. Regarding the seismic signals, these beams were thrown out not all at once and hitting the ground all at once, like the Seattle Kingdom, which was an entire roof which basically hit the ground at once. These are one at a time over a period of about 12, 13 seconds. So it is a rumble, not a crash. So that would not produce the same seismic signals at all, and wouldn't be expected to. There were seismic signals prior to the collapse of this building, which were intense explosions, which were experienced in the basement. But of course, Judy Wood denies that as well.
Okay, awesome. We just have to, bring up the things that, when I see people on the internet saying, well, it's this thing, well, no, other people are saying it's this thing, and people say, well, I'd love to ask Richard Gage his theory or his idea or his opinion of what this could be. So it's always good to explore other things out there, and it doesn't mean everyone always has to agree with each other. We all agree that the official story is a farce and it doesn't have a leg to stand on, and thanks to the architects and engineers, this is some of the proof that we have that this building did in fact fall at free fall. Structurally, this shouldn't have happened. It's never happened before. There's just a number of aspects that just completely say that the truth is not what we got told that day by the different media outlets and by the official story. I believe Fox News, within 45 seconds, the building heated up over 800 degrees and that caused structural collapse and that's why it fell down. So even their official story of why they think it happened, structural steel doesn't melt at 800 degrees and fall down. It's much hotter, it's much greater, and even then it weakens before it collapse. It's mind-blowing. Even myself with limited education can see through the lies. So that's why groups like yourself and some of the other scholars is so important to the movement. Just thanks again for the amount that you're doing. Now, where is it again tonight that people can see you? And there's an abundance of information. How long is your speech tonight?
We're at the University of New Brunswick at the Wu Center at 7 p.m. Eastern. Of course, and it's a couple of hours long, 2.5 with Q&A.
Awesome. That's just unbelievable. I'm so glad that it came to Canada. I was coming to St. Catharines, and that was the day that I had booked with my family and everything, and we were definitely coming down. I wanted to get the interview live and in person and get to meet you and thank you for your work. But we were able to get a hold of you, and thanks to Bev Collins for hooking all of this up. She made it possible for us to connect up. So now that we have you on air, just thanks a million for the work that you do. You're basically, stating your career on, this didn't happen. This shouldn't have happened, and this is what you believe happened. Well,
there's millions of people in the 9/11 Truth movement, and they're all doing the same thing. I'm just vocalizing their voices and collecting their research and distributing it.
I would love to see, and I know many other 9/11 truthers, if that's what we're being called now, would love to see a panel where you take the Richard Gage from Architects and Engineers, the head of the 9/11 pilots, and these different people have one mega panel and just talk with like a debate forum with the NIST people or the official 9/11 commission, like have some sort of governmental panel bring you guys up and get to the consensus points that people can all 110% agree on, and they actually show you on the consensus 9/11 page how many people agree with this, how many people can say, there's a number of different groups and we all do agree. So that's a great place to check out this information. But is there any future plans for more tours or more angles? How are you guys coming at this next?
We're going to YouTube, and we're going to put advertising up in YouTube, as we did in Toronto, with a 15-second ad in the case of Toronto subway on the screens that announce the train station, the trains coming in. They'll see right now. They're seeing Building 7 coming down on those screens in Toronto, and we're going to do that in YouTube. When people go to YouTube to watch a video, they will, in some cases, have to watch Building 7 coming down first and deal with it.
Yeah, it'll finally be one of those video ads that's going to be better than the video you end up watching on YouTube.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. Well, like I said, thanks for all of your work. We're greatly appreciative that you were able to come out this afternoon before your big show tonight, and I definitely hope that you keep up the great work that's happening with the architects and engineers. Is there any other architects and engineers that you know of that are doing the speeches and the talks? Because I'm definitely familiar with your work, but I would love to get some more either on the network or just be able to look it up myself where they've put out some of their information.
Yeah, we have a dozen or so architects and engineers, mostly engineers, who speak publicly, more locally. They're not doing tours, I don't think, but they travel within their region and do the events locally. So those events are listed on our website at ae911truth.org. The Rethink 9/11 Canada tour schedule can be found, and tickets can be purchased at rethink911.ca.
Awesome. We've actually been showing the schedule on one of your flyers, kind of rotating through the show tonight, so people should be able to get a hold of their local Truth Movement group and come see Richard before he leaves Canada. Once again, thanks for coming on the show, for everything you do, and I'm just going to take us off air and say goodbye to you as soon as we get off. I managed to keep it in the time schedule that we were allotted, so thanks again, and this has been episode 68 of Truth Talk. I am Chance George, saying goodnight, and thanks for joining us, Richard.
Thank you, Chance. Appreciate it.
You're watching Network Radio. Live from the Media Broadcasting Center